This happened last weekend, and I'm still in shock about the whole thing. I'm a 26-year-old woman moving my belongings to the new place my fiance and I just bought. Since I don't have a car yet, I use public transportation to bring my stuff in my backpack. The backpack has a cool Anne Stokes design on the front with a dragon wrapped around a skull. I was sitting at the back of the bus halfway through my journey when a mother and her young son boarded. The boy looked around 6 or 7, and like most kids, he wanted to sit at the back. He sat at the opposite end of my row, while his mother took a seat facing backwards, across from him. They had only been on the bus for a couple of stops when the boy noticed my backpack. He excitedly pointed out my dragon backpack to his mother and asked if he could have a similar one for school, saying he thought it was cool. I caught his mother's eye and gave her a smile and nod. The mother then asked me where I got the bag, explaining that her son would like one too, and she wanted to know where she could buy a similar backpack. I told her I had bought it on Amazon, but mentioned she could find them at other online shops if she searched for Anne Stokes backpack. She asked about the price, and I explained that I had bought it some time ago for around £20, but warned that prices might have gone up since then. The mother said £20 seemed expensive for a backpack. I said the quality was good for the price. That ended our conversation. The mother took out her phone, likely to search for the backpack. After a few minutes, she spoke to me again, but her tone had changed. She called for my attention, and I looked at her. The mother complained that she had looked up the bags I mentioned and found that the cheapest one was nearly £40, which she thought was ridiculous. I reminded her that I had warned her about the prices going up since I bought mine. The mother looked me up and down. It made me uncomfortable. She suggested that I give her son my backpack and buy myself another one since I had no problem paying for such an expensive item. I refused, saying I wouldn't give up my bag because it belonged to me. The son told her not to take my bag and said he could save up his pocket money to buy one himself. The mother told him that the adults were talking. She then turned back to me and told me to give her the bag, saying her son wanted it and she wasn't going to spend so much money on a backpack. I refused again, saying I wouldn't give her my bag as it had all my belongings. The mother huffed and leaned back in her seat. She then told her son that the mean lady wouldn't share her bag with him. I rolled my eyes and looked out the window. After a while, the boy pressed the button to request the next stop. I always keep one arm through one of the straps of my backpack on public transportation to prevent it from being stolen. I was looking out the window when I felt a hard yank on my arm. I turned to see the mother grabbing at my backpack. I asked what she was doing. The mother said she was taking the bag, saying she had given me a chance to give her son what he wanted. The son begged her to stop and said he just wanted to go home. I told her to take her hands off my property or I would get the bus driver and call the police. Everyone on the bus was watching our tug of war, including the bus driver, who rushed over to us. The bus driver asked what was happening. The mother lied, saying I had taken her son's backpack and was refusing to return it. She wanted me removed from the bus and arrested. I said the bag was mine. The mother claimed she had bought the backpack for her son as a Christmas present and that it was his favorite. I said I could prove the bag belonged to me. The mother folded her arms. I unzipped the top of my backpack and pulled out one of my bras. The mother's face went white. Without a word, she grabbed her son by the arm and rushed off the bus. I apologized to the bus driver for the disturbance. The driver said it wasn't a problem and told me there were cameras on the bus. He would tell the depot about the woman trying to steal from passengers. The driver returned to his seat and started the bus again. I kept my bag on my lap with both hands for the rest of the journey until I reached my new home. I can't believe someone would try to steal my backpack in broad daylight on a public bus. I'm way far behind on things. My best friend is getting married, and as a best man, I need my formal wear tailored since I lost a ton of weight over the past year. On Valentine's Day, my wife and I went to the appointment at the local shop together, planning to grab wings and beers for happy hour afterward. I stood in the mini funhouse of mirrors with an elderly Asian lady controlling my every move only saying no 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 anytime I shifted my weight. I heard a man saying excuse me over and over again. Assuming he wanted another staff member, the three of us ignored him. After the fourth excuse me, I heard this booming voice ask if we were deaf, followed by commotion behind me. I tried to turn around, but with needles all through my inner thigh and other areas, I couldn't move well. In the mirror, I saw a huge guy, about 6 feet tall and 200 pounds, grab my wife by the arm and spin her around. My wife is tiny, just 5 feet tall and 105 pounds, but she's the daughter of a retired United States Air Force colonel who works for a government agency, and she's a retired Navy lieutenant with years of training in Krav Maga and Taekwondo. Before I could speak, my wife's reflexes kicked in. When this giant towered over her, she elbowed him in the diaphragm and pushed him back. My wife told him to keep his hands off her and that she didn't work there. The guy stumbled back, but instead of leaving, his face changed. He got into a fighting stance, ready to fight in a tailor shop with a woman half his size. I tried again to move to protect my wife, but I was stuck with about 50 pins threatening important parts of my anatomy. But I didn't need to worry. When this idiot charged at my wife with his fist back, she took a half step back into a stance I recognize from our Saturday mornings when I bring her coffee in the basement. The dude put all his weight into a punch, and my wife spun out of the way. As she turned, her Doc Marten boot hit the side of his face, leaving a tread pattern. It wasn't like the movies. This guy's direction just changed. Like a plane going down, he crashed into one of those circular clothing racks and disappeared into expensive suits and shirts. The elderly tailor hadn't even stopped working on my pants. A staff member ran in telling us they called the police. 3 minutes later, officers arrived, and by then, our attacker was just getting out of the clothes. The police took statements from everyone and watched the security footage. They handcuffed the guy to a gurney as paramedics loaded him into an ambulance. My wife's kick had broken his orbital bone and several teeth. I found out later he had been drinking since noon after getting fired from his job. The shop manager showed up and told my wife our suits would be comped. My wife refused at first, but he insisted since we'd have to come back to finish the fitting. As they wheeled him out, the officer taking our statement asked where my wife learned to fight like that. My wife told him it was just training from her military days. I watched the officer's eyes widen when she mentioned which unit she'd served with. She never talks about her deployments, even to me. The officer nodded, finished our statement, and told us we could go. We made it to happy hour for wings and beers. My wife ordered extra spicy ones and ate them while I was still thinking about what happened. The waitress recognized my wife from a self-defense class she taught at the community center. They talked about upcoming classes while I worked on my second beer. I still wonder how that guy explains his injuries to people. That same night, we saw his mugshot on the local news for assaulting 3 other people before us. I can't take her anywhere without something crazy happening. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Next week, we're going back for my final fitting, and the tailor already warned me to come alone. Something I read recently brought back this memory from about 15 years ago, when I worked for a small computer programming company in town. We made automation software for factories and warehouses. Our team had just 5 programmers. We were good at what we did, which is probably why a national corporation bought us out. At first, nothing changed. We kept working while the paperwork got sorted. Then our new manager called a meeting. Our manager told us corporate would send a liaison to our office. He explained this person would learn how we did things to bridge between offices. We knew what this meant. They wanted someone to learn our jobs so they could fire most of us before next quarter. We looked at each other around the table, but we had no choice. A month later, a guy in a pressed shirt with a company lanyard showed up. Let's call him Suit Guy. He smiled as our manager introduced him. Suit Guy said he was excited to learn how we operated and had heard good things about our productivity. I told him we were happy to show him the ropes. My co-workers and I shared looks. We dreaded this day, but now realized we might have an advantage. Suit Guy asked to see the interface, saying he wanted to start right away. We all stopped, looked at each other, and grinned. The reason it took so long to train new people wasn't because our software was hard to configure. In corporate language, configuring meant clicking menus and checking boxes until things worked. We coded everything by hand. Our program used Visual Basic files, not scripts, complete program files. And Suit Guy was not a programmer. He couldn't tell a for loop from a bubble sort. I told him there wasn't really an interface and showed him how we set up projects. I opened my development environment with a massive file of code. Suit Guy asked what he was looking at. My coworker told him it was our X policy, about 1,500 lines of code in its basic form. Suit Guy asked if we had default policies to work from, hoping for an easier way. I told him yes, but customizing them was more trouble than writing from scratch. I started explaining global variables. His eyes glazed over as I talked about variable declarations, function callbacks, and custom libraries. He tried for days. Whenever he started to understand something, we switched him to something more complex. Suit Guy asked if he could change a value in the code. I warned him he'd need to adjust parameters in 3 other files first, and started explaining inheritance structure. Our company only hired people with computer science degrees. We required 6 months of training and 6 more months of shadowing before letting anyone handle projects alone. This guy got a year's training in 1 week. By day 5, Suit Guy looked exhausted. His neat clothes were rumpled. I almost felt bad for him. On his last day, he asked me to get coffee. I expected the worst. Maybe he'd report we weren't cooperating. Suit Guy told me he needed to be honest. I asked what he meant. He admitted he was sent to learn how to replace us. Corporate thought our department was redundant and could be handled by their standard team using interfaces. I nodded. We knew all along. Then Suit Guy surprised me by saying he'd tell corporate we were doing a great job with surprisingly short time frames. He said they couldn't replicate our work with their methods. I told him I appreciated his honesty. He said our work was impressive and he couldn't learn it in a month, let alone a week. He would recommend keeping our team intact. They did. Our department ran for 5 years before new management brought in an easier-to-use software suite. They finally replaced our custom coding with a configurable interface. Now, 10 years later, people still complain about missing the old X system, saying it did things in half the time. Instead of our 5-person team, they have multiple departments that can't even fix a broken image link. I wonder if Suit Guy is still there, remembering his crash course in programming, agreeing with everyone who misses our old system. I'm overweight. As a Gen Xer, I usually don't care what people think, but my anxiety gets the better of me. In stressful situations, I freeze up or become snarky. Recently, I had surgery on my foot and ankle, resulting in a hard fiberglass cast. When the medical staff asked what color I wanted, I said surprise me, and ended up with a bright safety yellow one. After being home for weeks following my surgery, I was going stir-crazy. The doctor had me on orders to rest and elevate my foot, but I needed to get out. I decided to treat myself to a trip to the grocery store. After weeks at home, even selecting my own bananas seemed exciting. I Ubered to a fancy grocery store with an in-store coffee shop, thinking I could relax there while waiting for my return ride. When I arrived, I made my way into the store on crutches, heading for one of those motorized shopping carts. They moved slowly, and finding a spot for my crutches where they wouldn't be in everyone's way was tricky. Once settled, I began shopping in the produce section. I was halfway through my list thinking about chicken and rice recipes in the grain aisle when I heard someone clear their throat behind me. Ahem! I looked around to make sure I wasn't blocking the aisle with my cart. Ahem! The second one was louder and came from directly behind me. I turned to see a woman about my age, possibly younger, staring at me. I asked if I was blocking her way and moved my cart forward to create more space by the boxed rice. She asked where I was going. I told her I thought she wanted me to move out of her way. She told me she needed a large bag of dog food taken to the register. I was confused. There I was in a motorized cart with a yellow cast on my leg and crutches wedged into the cart basket. I told her I hadn't seen any staff but would keep an eye out for her. I tried to roll away, but she walked in front of me and blocked the aisle. She told me about the dog food again, adding now at the end. I told her I understood and offered to help her look for staff members. When she didn't move, I asked her to excuse me. Instead of moving, she put her hand on her hip and gave me a scowl. I put the cart in reverse, causing it to beep loudly. She asked why I wasn't helping her and mentioned the dog food again, raising her voice. I told her I didn't work at the store. I was wearing black sweatpants with one leg rolled up over my cast, a sweatshirt with a cartoon monster, and the words cutting edge monster removal at affordable prices, a leopard print slipper on my good foot, and my hair in a messy bun. She told me I did work there, saying that the motorized cart was an employee cart. I looked at her in confusion, wondering how she could think a person with a cast, in sweatpants, using a mobility scooter was an employee who could carry a 50-pound bag of dog food. I explained that the motorized cart was for shoppers with mobility issues, told her again I didn't work there, and offered to help find an employee. She looked me up and down, her eyes fixing on my bright yellow cast. Then she made a dismissive sound and walked away. I shrugged it off, but my enjoyment of this outing had gone down. When you've been stuck at home for weeks, even grocery shopping feels like an adventure. I decided to head to the in-store coffee shop. I was drinking my coffee when I saw the woman coming back with the store manager. She pointed at me from across the cafe area. She told the manager I was the employee who had refused to help her. I had options. I could sit quietly and let the manager handle it, or I could add fuel to the fire. I chose fuel. I raised my hand, wiggled my fingers in a wave, said toodles, then hunched down like I was on a motorcycle and zoomed off toward the frozen food section. I started humming the Mission Impossible theme song while trying to avoid this grocery store Karen. The manager caught up to me in the ice cream aisle. He was smiling. The manager told me he was sorry about the confusion. The woman had said I was an employee refusing to help her. I asked if the store's employees typically shopped in motorized carts with bright yellow casts while wearing monster sweatshirts. He said they didn't and asked if he could make up for the trouble. I said I was fine unless he could make the woman disappear, but I wouldn't turn down a discount on ice cream. He laughed and gave me a coupon for a free pint. Later, as I waited for my Uber, I saw Karen at the register struggling with her dog food bag, while a teenage employee tried to help. She caught my eye and I raised my coffee cup in a toast.